today's video, we will be forging the face of death itself. The Red Death Mask from the Masquerade sequence of the Phantom of the Opera. Kindly sit back, stay so quiet, and let's begin. If you are here for part 3 of the Grabber Mask series, in which I do the painting, be not alarmed, that video is still coming shortly. But I got an order on my Etsy to make this mask, so this project took priority. If you'd like to check out this mask or any of my other masks or products, I will leave my Etsy linked below. I'm very fond of this mask in particular. It's a totally original design, and I'm quite proud of how the finished product turned out. This is actually the first mold I ever made of silicone. You can see back in the day I was using a Rebound 25 as a mold jacket. Whenever you work with epoxy resin, it is very important to wear latex gloves, as it dries and cures, it will become very hot. You don't want to get that on your skin. You can see there I'm using my favorite resin, not sponsored. I just think they're a great product. That's that lovely white drying smooth cast. 65D. You can see there we're just stirring it up. And what we're going to be doing is called slush casting, where I'm essentially just rolling it around, being careful to get it in all the cracks and crevices of that mask shape there. This is something you'll get better with as you do it, but a general motion you do want to get the hang of is this sort of wrist roll type thing you can see me doing there, and that's useful as the resin begins to kick. So it's still slightly liquidy, but not totally runny either. Here's a cool time lapse of it drying. You can see it sort of flash freeze. I ended up doing 4 coats, one for the base, one for the left and the right side respectively, and then one again to go over everything. You can see there we've got a nice even white thickness the whole way through. So we're just going to demold. Small mask. The demolding's actually pretty easy here, not a very complex shape, so it should just pop right out. Now I'm taking off the excess with my fingers, being careful not to rip away pieces that I wish to keep. And then the parts that are too tough, I will go in with some, those are shears for rope art, shall we say, but they also make lovely plastic cutting scissors, as they're quite durable. Don't use the same ones for each though. I had a pack that had 2, I'll link them below. But you can see they're just cutting off some of the excess so that we have to do less work with our Dremel. It doesn't have to get super close here because we are going to go in with that Dremel and remove any of the remaining pieces. Sorry about the quality here. I had to cover my camera so it didn't get the dust from the Dremel on it. But you can see there we're just going around all the edges, ensuring we get a nice even surface that accurately represents the shape that we molded so long ago. Using some 400 grit sandpaper there to smooth up some areas that I wanted to do by hand. And then we're making holes in the eyes. To be sure to wear a respirator when you're doing this, because those fumes, you saw the smoke, can be quite bad, as well as just getting the stuff in the air. It's not good to be breathing. But you can see here we are just working bit by bit to widen those eye holes, going slowly. Be careful not to undo parts, and then we're removing the burr on the inside of the mask that forms almost like honing the blade of a knife, if you've ever sharpened a knife. And you can see this is what we're left with, a very lovely white base for our Red Death skull. going in with some really cheap, I think this is top-notch paint there. I just love the color. Top-notch is a bad brand. It's not named aptly, but I do really like this color, and it's very cheap. So, lovely for this wash that we're going to be doing, and we want to keep the coat super thin to keep it as thin as you can. Don't want paint clotting. Being careful to get the edges, and now the inside of the eyes as well, just to make sure there's no area that's left uncovered by our base. This is Deco Art Burnt Umber, and it's a lovely dark brown that we're going to be using for some of our contoured, shadowy, grimy parts of this mask. And it's not dark enough, so I'm actually going to go in with some cheap craft store black paint as well. Just sort of darken up that crack down the middle to ensure we get some lovely contrast. Another burnt umber, but this time from Liquitex, which is my favorite paint brand in the world. Again, not sponsored. I just think they have a lovely paint that is extremely opaque, so you can see I'm using very little there. And what we're going to be doing is dry brushing, so we're rubbing off the vast majority of the paint that's on our brush, and then reapplying it. And then I guess I am going in with water, so it's not true dry brushing, because we do want to sort of smear it and blend it out. I'll try to get the angle a little better next time. Sorry, I didn't realize. Again, going in on the center of the eyes there. Now we're going back in with that original bone color, and we're just going to blend out some of those darker areas, doing our best to make sure this looks like an old, weathered, decrepit skull, because that's very much the vibe we're going for. For the highlights, I'm just using a paper towel, and I'm actually going to scrub off the paint on all those raised areas to reveal the white epoxy underneath, and that will give us some really great contrast once we seal this, because we'll have the shadows, two separate colors of shadow, the base color, and then those highlights, using some Rust-Oleum satin clear coat on the first setting there. I think satin's always the way to go, almost always, unless you want something to look especially slimy or especially matte. I just think it looks the most professional, but be sure you do your coats thin enough that it doesn't run. I did 2 coats in total. This is a trick I learned from, I'll try to find his channel and link it. He's a guy who makes Jason masks, Jason Voorhees masks. You can actually sand the clear coat with a little bit of just printer paper, and it'll smooth it out even further to get a more uniform finish, which is something I like to take the time to do for the products that I'm selling. And this, it really adds just another level of uniformity. Cleaning up some of the insides with a wet wipe, and that's just to ensure that any loose paint won't come off if you're wearing this mask, and perhaps perspirating while wearing it. So I'd like to take the time to do that as well. And you can see here's our finished product. I'm really happy with how this came out. This might actually be my favorite paint job I've ever done on this mask mold. I've sold about 7 or 8 of them now, I think. I'm back in town now. Do not think, good monsieur, that I have left you for good. Tune in next week for your regularly scheduled program. Like and subscribe. It helps me out a